You know, every once in a while, we get to an episode where I genuinely have nothing to say about it. The only thing that sticks out in this episode is this scene. And how disgusting it is. However, because all these episodes are created equal, and I love all 222 of you guys equally, of course I went to this episode with the mind to analyze it, and...
Now, how in thunderation is one of them twins a Pegasus, and the other one a unicorn?
I think Mr. Cake just got cheated on by his wife. Let's just start at the beginning. First of all, what an odd group of people to be there at the hospital watching these babies. It sort of makes sense for Pinkie to be here since... Wait, does it? Does the relationship between Pinkie and the Cakes go beyond employee/tenant? I guess so, judging by the fact that, you know, Pinkie is here. But still! Anyways, on to more pressing matters.
Now, how in thunderation is one of them twins a Pegasus, and the other one a unicorn?
Easy. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was a unicorn, and Cupcake's great-aunt's second cousin twice removed was a Pegasus.
Is that Cope? He ends the whole thing by saying...
That makes sense, right?
While darting his eyes around, almost seeming like a way to reassure himself that these actually are his children and that his wife didn't lie to him about an affair. Does this not mean that Mr. Cake is slightly scared that Mrs. Cake might have cheated on him? Wait a second. That means that this episode isn't forgettable like I remembered it being. Instead, it means it's relatable? I guess that is what it means because Mrs. Cake doesn't weigh on in any of this. Her silence speaks volumes more than her words ever could. Let's reel it back a little.
Easy. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was a unicorn.
That makes sense since, you know, recessive and dominant genes and all that, you know, like Punnett squares like I'm sure you've all learned in science class. But on her side of the equation, it's only said that...
And Cupcake's great-aunt's second cousin twice removed was a Pegasus.
Okay, so... this is your relation to your great-aunt's second cousin twice removed. So you're not even related at that point. You're practically strangers. This just sounds like a lot of... It sounds like a lot of... It sounds like a lot of hoopla that Mrs. Cake just pulled out of nowhere to get away with cheating on her husband. My money's on that she did it with these gentlemen. Come on, like, it's so obvious. Apparently, it actually is possible to have twins from different fathers, so anything's possible at this point. That's not suspicious at all, guys.
Aw, yeah. Just you wait. Once little Pound Cake there gets his wings going, he'll be all over the place. And be careful around Pumpkin Cake.
I like how Rainbow Dash straight up gets ignored and nobody acknowledges what she says at all, which is relatable, and I'll also give it props here. I don't know what it is about this angle or expression or what, but Fluttershy actually looks pretty cute here. Perhaps I've treated her too harshly in the past. Speaking of Fluttershy, it's very interesting how we've barely gotten anything with Fluttershy as the focus so far in the season. Oh well. But to take a step back, if we're to take what Mr. Cake says at face value instead of looking deep into it, and this wasn't him secretly getting betrayed by his wife, this discussion would confirm the headcanon that pony species can interbreed and have an offspring who's a different race. Which basically means that all bets are off in all the early theorizing / headcanoning that Berry Punch and Ruby Pinch are a family. And also the whole Derpy / Dinky / Dr. Hoof's family thing. Anyways, then we get a time skip of a month. Isn't it a little disgusting how these babies who just turned 1 month old already have a full set of teeth, apparently, when in reality, ponies, you know, take a while to grow teeth. But on the topic of their design aspects, Pound and Pumpkin look pretty freaking different to that other baby pony we saw in the mysterious Mare-de-Well, which, like I said during our analysis of that episode, this was the very first time we see an infant pony in the show. It's quite interesting how they practically retconned this design when it kind of feels like this was included as like a potential setup of seeing more of this guy's kind in later episodes. And it's not like there's different types of babies and different builds of babies, because if we go back to that hospital scene, all these other newborn ponies are all recolors of Pound and Pumpkin Cake, just with very suspiciously similar colors to other ponies we know, such as Dizzy Twister, Derpy, who apparently did it with a unicorn, Sprinkle Medley, Rainbow Shine, Lilac Lynx, who also did it with a unicorn, and finally Dizzy Twister again. Wow. I get this is probably the result of them having pre-made pony mats with appealing colors or something, but I guess the implication now is that those background ponies have children that never appear ever again. Anyways, then we're rewarded with what might be the most disgusting scene of all time.
Oh, I got it.
because I had to be subjected to rewatching this episode multiple times for this analysis, we're gonna dissect the scene in great detail whether you like it or not, but I'm sure you'll love it. First of all, I'm sure you appreciate how they went out of their way to include this bulge in the diaper so that we get a nice visual of the baby's droppings and how this particular piece here weighs down the fabric in the middle. I know that you love the physics of this thing swishing around here and how this overall object reacts accordingly to the extra mass in here. You know, the animators could have just left this as one curve and they didn't have to add that extra curve here, but they actually went one step beyond to treat you to this. And who could forget about these stink lines, really giving you a sense of the emanating stench of what's going on. But visuals and smell aside, auditorily, is that even a word? Whatever. If we're going to take note of the audio here, that's right, they added some wet sloshing noises that you have to actively listen for if you want to get the full effect. Which makes me wonder why they even put this here in the first place. It's not super loud where it's obvious, it's just there in the background. Though I guess I haven't really brought up the audio work on the show, particularly for this season in expansive detail yet. But what I noticed while watching Luna Eclipsed is that the show actually does go one step beyond. For example, take a listen to these crickets chirping in the background. Even though the usage of the sound effect of crickets chirping are usually reserved to punctuate scenes where there's a dead crowd, the context that was used here was to build ambience of it being nighttime. In fact, you can still hear it in the background if you listen closely enough, even when the characters are talking.
Try to land the spiders on the web.
And you know, there usually wouldn't be cricket noises in a cartoon when people are talking, yet it's still there in the background, which is a brilliant way of building atmosphere through consistent noise, which is an effective way of making the episode and the world overall feel immersive to the viewer. And I wanted to spotlight this here just to show that things like this prove that there was a lot of care, or at least not super obvious creative decisions that went behind crafting the show to make it what it is. All that to say, yeah, they went out of their way to include the wet sound of this soiled diaper sloshing around. That's disgusting. This was the one time they did not have to go above and beyond with the sound effects. Also, I know you're very grateful and delighted that they gave us another angle of this thing swinging around more, just so that you can get a taste of the physics on this thing from multiple angles and forces and speed. Also, the fact that Mr. Cake does this so nonchalantly, and that there's been a month in between the twins' birth and now, that means that there must have been a month's worth of him getting used to chucking this thing and getting it in. And that means that there's been some times where he missed the target and hit the wall and accidentally had the thing explode all over the place. That's disgusting. Especially when this is an establishment where they serve food in. Also, why is there only one diaper being thrown if he's changing both of them? It's entirely possible that he wrapped one of them in the other to conserve space in the bin, since I'm sure that would stack up a lot over time. But that means that he had to use his mouth to grab one of them, and once again, using his mouth to place it in the other one like this, and then use his mouth to, you know, shut the whole thing. That means he had to put his mouth over, and he's not even gonna wipe the babies. Though, if he's changing the diapers with his mouth, I don't want to see how he's gonna wipe. Wait a second. I didn't want to see him changing them either. I am not buying for this business, and I'd encourage you guys to not either in light of all this. This business clearly does not care about basic hygiene. They pretend to do with this.
Is any pony hungry?
But like, dude, brush your teeth and wash your face, not your hooves. That's like the least of your concerns at this point. Your hooves are gonna get dirty within 2 seconds of you walking outside in the dirt anyway. But that's enough of that for a lifetime. Let's just move on to the actual plot of the episode.
Great cinnamon sticks! I completely forgot!
The food for the enormously big catering order we have to deliver today. Quick, honey bun, we need to find a babysitter to watch the foals while we take care of this.
So anyways, the Cakes realize that they have a special delivery to order and therefore try to look for a babysitter.
I would love to babysit, but I can't today, sorry. I promised Angel we'd go on a picnic.
It's not like you could easily take the babies with you on the picnic. I'm sure Fluttershy would be more than capable of keeping watch on 2 babies on top of a rabbit. Unless, of course, Angel himself wanted alone time with Fluttershy, which, I mean, fair enough. Also,
I have to finish this report for the princess, summarizing all my other reports to the princess.
Twilight's excuse is kind of dumb because there's no way she's close to the deadline to this project and doing it last second, so she's not actually busy. Plus, I doubt Princess Celestia would care too much anyway about her getting it done by a certain point. Didn't we have an entire episode about this not too long ago?
Moi! Babysit! No. I am flattered that you would think about me, though.
Now, despite having no actual excuse, I think Rarity is actually one of the more excusable ones here. First of all, she has sharp tools and stuff all over her house. And if one of these babies step on her desk, it's all over. And instead of compensation, what is she going to receive from the cakes instead? Lawsuit. Secondly, we've seen a habit of Rarity's refusal to babysit in Stairmaster and Sisterhoof Social, and for good reason.
I just won't have any time to watch you if I want to get these robes delivered on time. But no buts this time. I'm sorry, Sweetie Belle. It's just the way it has to be.
She has important orders to fill, and she could barely handle watching over Sweetie Belle without almost strangling her. So these two would have probably made her crash out. Therefore, this whole scenario is in character for her, and is very consistent with what we've seen of her so far, which is cool. Though it's a little bit dumb how everyone here but Pinkie were busy.
I got tickets to the Wonderbolts air show this afternoon. Got a dash.
But somehow they all had free time all at the same time to witness the babies at the hospital in the beginning of the episode.
Ask me! Me, 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 me.
I like the implication that Pinkie would have killed a baby, and instead of like doing anything about it, just running away and avoiding responsibility. Which is scarily a good callback to Luna Eclipsed, where she left her newborn egg just there to be eaten by Nightmare Moon. That aside, she also lost track of a child that she was supposed to be watching, who almost drowned and got cannibalized thanks to that, by the way.
Hey, gals. Any pony seen Pip? We lost him the last time we had to run. Ah! Nightmare Moon is gobbling Pip's quick!
Well, against their better judgment, the cakes allow her to babysit their children, which one could definitely argue is a little bit of a questionable decision on their parts. If they hesitated so much to make Pinkie their babysitter originally and only caved in because there was no other option and they had an important order to fill, that means they literally know that Pinkie isn't going to be a good option for their children. And now that I think about it, remember, it's been a whole month since these children were born.
But now you're a month old today. Hey!
Therefore, you're going to tell me that they had no need in getting a regular babysitter by this point, and that they took a super big order without thinking ahead? There's no way that this order was made over a month in advance, right? Plus, even if it was, surely you'd want to think ahead when you have newborns. Sure, the episode goes out of its way to show how involved the parents are when taking care of their babies.
No, you see, Pinkie, the babies need to be burnt.
So you could argue that the idea of getting a babysitter never crossed their mind because they're always with their babies, but then that makes you wonder why one of these guys couldn't just, stay home with the babies instead of both of them going out for this delivery. Well, that's because it's a two-pony job to deliver this. It's a big cake after all. Plus, they said that they still have to decorate it.
We'll frost it when we get there. Come on, Sugar Plum, tick tick.
See? Well, it's a shame that they don't have any other employee in their business who seems to be pretty down for helping out in whatever way she can. Oh wait, yes they do! Why couldn't this delivery job just have been done with Mr. Cake and Pinkie, with Mrs. Cake staying home with the kids? Or the other way around, I don't know, whatever. We're not sexist on this channel. Actually, yes we are, but still! I may have gotten a little bit heated there, but let's just see how Pinkie does with this babysitting job.
The other day, I spilled spot remover on my dog, and now I can't find him!
Wow, I love it when the show references things that the target demographic wouldn't even get.
I spilled spot remover on my dog, now he's gone.
Anyways, what kids will get is this song that she sings.
First you jingle your tail, oink, 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 then you wriggle your snout, oink, 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 then you...
Which makes these babies cry even harder than they were already crying. I like how this ain't exactly the first time Pinkie Pie singing completely ruined everything, including making everybody's night at the gala bad, and literally starting a race war.
Our stampede will start at high noon tomorrow, and if the orchard is still there, we'll flatten it and the whole town.
And we Appaloosans say you'd better bring your best, 'cause we'll be ready and wait.
Oh, that wasn't the message of my song at all.
And now making babies cry. Fantastic. That's literally negative 3,000 aura. How are you gonna even muster up the courage to keep singing in front of people after all that? But speaking of the song,
Oink, 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 then shout it out. Oink, oink, oink.
the song was originally meant to be used in the episode The Best Night Ever, but was cut for time, and they repurposed it for this episode. I played the demo for that version when we talked about that episode, but I think it's worth revisiting again and examining it once again, but in the context of this episode.
First you jiggle your tail, then you wriggle your snout, then you wiggle your rump. Oink, 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 oink.
so the lyrics largely remain the same, just with a new melody. However, what's completely original to this demo version is this section that I'm actually kind of sad that they got rid of.
Come on and dance, just like a piggy. Come on, it's easy as can be.
That is really catchy. Either way, Pinkie finds out that the babies only calm down when she drenches herself in flour, of all things. What that bag was doing on top of that thing is beyond me. Seems like a pretty inefficient way to store anything if you ask me, but anything for the plot to happen, I guess. Then again, we're soon treated to her taking out another bag of flour from a similar cabinet, which I just now noticed while editing this, that the door starts off open before Pinkie even touches it, and after she takes the flour out, she bothers to close it, which, I mean, I guess makes sense when you consider it's probably way easier animating a pony closing this thing than opening it, but then I don't get why they would have even bothered animating her closing it. But okay, anyways, therefore, maybe the only reason this bag was atop this cabinet was because the insides of it were full of other bags already. Wow, look at me playing both prosecutor and defense attorney. Wow, it seems like you've got greater fish to fry than catching those babies. The left bath nozzle is missing. Now the babies are gonna have no choice but to boil in hot water. Isn't it fantastic how these children end up hiding in the medicine cabinet? Why are there pills? This is kind of disturbing on multiple levels. The fact that one of the cakes are already on some kind of pills as a young parent is one thing, but it's another thing that these fall to the floor in the presence of newborns and Pinkie doesn't pick them up. Not just at the risk of one of the babies eating it, because we've seen some precedent of these guys chewing on random things earlier.
We don't chew on things, pumpkin cake.
But also because if these are prescription, that means whoever this belongs to is going to be lacking 3 doses thanks to Pinkie's irresponsibility. That's depressing. What else is depressing is how we're subjected to this. Yep, this scene one-ups the last diaper scene in the audio department for sure. The fact that we hear buzzing of flies means that these diapers have been soiled for a long enough time for flies to take notice and start swarming around the place. Not only that, but remember that this is a bakery, a place where a lot of people get their food from. Thinking about it, I think the place where I'd like to see flies the least is, well, aside from my room and my house, a super close second to that is, a place where they serve food. That's disgusting. Either way, Twilight pays a visit to Pinkie, offering to help with babysitting.
I finished up the work I had to do, so I thought I'd stop by and see if you needed any help. Whoa!
And, earlier I mentioned how Twilight's excuse was flimsy, but this whole interaction actually takes notice of that and flips it on its head to make things make better sense. That's good writing. Wow, is that cake without the actual cake part? And is this a cupcake without the top half of the icing? Seems like not only is this bakery full of flies, but half of some of their food just straight up doesn't exist. Anyway, Pinkie tells Twilight to screw off with her sense of facts and logic.
Babies take a lot of work, and some ponies are just not cut out to handle the responsibility.
Is that so?
And decides to stay stubborn to do everything herself, even if she kind of knows she can't. Man, if only we had an episode where we learned that you're allowed to lean on your friends when they offer help instead of leaning on your own pride. Oh, hey, look, it's the chicken from Dragon Shy. It's kind of funny to think that even though Pinkie just pulls things out of nowhere sometimes, these physical items still are stored somewhere rather than nowhere when she's not using them.
Helping! This is a crib. It is only to be used for napping, sleeping, and on occasion with permission as a pretend old-timey Western fort.
Okay, as disgusting as this episode was so far, that's a pretty cool reference.
I love my wife and family. All I'm going to use this bed for is sleeping, eating, and maybe building a little fort. That's it.
Anywho, it's a little strange how, with how much emphasis they were putting on Pinkie trying to put diapers onto the twins, she ultimately just gives up. Is she going to take responsibility and buy new mattresses for the family if these ones get soiled overnight? Whatever the case, the babies start being little gremlins, and I really dig the inspiration of horror elements here. You watch this half expecting a jump scare to pop up. It seems as though, knowing that the show has older fans, the writers really leaned into it by drawing inspiration from all sorts of stuff to make it enjoyable for all ages. We can also see an example of this from this billboard that they put up in Hollywood referencing Poltergeist to promote season 2. That's really cool. Well, as a result of the kids misbehaving and not listening to Pinkie, this happens. Pinkie crying here looks rather familiar. It's quite interesting how the context that this animation was used previously was for comic relief, and I took this as her way of trying to be silly in the scene.
I've missed you too.
But obviously, this episode's context is probably a genuine mental breakdown. I'm not sure because I suck at reading emotion. So now I'm wondering if her crying like this that previous time was also genuine. And we're wrong to find this funny because Pink is actually crying here. Who knows? I will say that either way, even though we see the arts evolving throughout the episodes, and we will see styles continue to evolve over time throughout the seasons, reusing stuff like this from a previous season is a fantastic way of still maintaining a level of consistency throughout. I appreciate that a whole lot, since in case you couldn't tell from how I always bring up cross-references and callbacks and stuff, internal consistency and not contradicting yourself is a value I place pretty high up. So I appreciate this a whole lot. Awesome. Though, it appears as if crying turns you into a blank flink. Well, that's...
You know, you're right. That is funny.
Well, that's dumb. The babies fell asleep for no reason. Doesn't that kind of mean that the problem would have solved itself, even if Pinkie didn't have an emotional breakdown?
Pinkie Pie, we're back!
How did everything go?
And now that I think about it, you're telling me that it took the rest of the day for this one delivery? Get out of here! Sure, yes, the society has trains, and you could argue that this was a delivery for the next town over, which I guess would take the whole day. However, what would anyone be doing requesting a delivery from a random bakery from another town? How good could this bakery's reputation possibly be if they literally changed their babies' diapers and have flies all over the place here? Between this and what I said earlier about how one of the cakes could have easily stayed home with Pinkie doing the delivery and helping with decorating the cake, this episode would have made so much more sense if it was about the cakes needing a break from their babies and wanting to go on a date or something. That would have pretty much solved every problem I have here so far. Either way, it seems as though Pinkie learns her lesson.
Would you be interested in becoming our go-to babysitter on a permanent basis?
I should be available a week from... Never!
With the cute little twist being,
Pinkie Pie.
just kidding, that's not cute. If I were the parents here, I'd be pretty pissed off that my children's first words were the name of the babysitter. Now, technically, I guess since it's been a month of their existence already, but because it doesn't specify and the implication is that this is probably one of their first words, I don't see this as heartwarming. I just see it as like, just sad. As for my initial thoughts about the episode overall, it was nice seeing Pinkie get some time in the spotlight, with her getting some actual character growth, especially because most of her recent appearances were relegated to comic relief.
Yesterday I told Mrs. Cake that I ate 2 corn cakes, but I really ate 3.
Like, this one joke in the cutie box just kept going and going and going.
Okay, 6. I ate 6 corn cakes.
It felt like the writers kind of wanted to remind the audience that Pinkie is a character that exists and is also a main character, but they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do with her, so they just put her in this elongated joke.
Make it stop. Oh, make it stop.
So it's cool seeing the writers taking her character out for a spin to give her some more depth, especially because her mental breakdown shows that she has some hidden layers to her personality. Well, we kind of knew that already, but still. Though, other than that, ultimately, what more do I even say about this episode? It seems like it was about to leave us with the message that some things take a level of responsibility we may not yet be ready for, which is a mature message that I think is really good to be taught, especially to the target demographic of the show. So up to this part, I was with you.
Would you be interested in becoming our go-to babysitter on a permanent basis?
I should be available a week from... Never.
But then the rest happens.
Pinkie Pie. I have some free time next Tuesday.
What the hell am I supposed to do with that? That's not a logical conclusion to this. What if I got myself into a similar situation as Pinkie, but the problem doesn't automatically solve itself, let alone end with it muttering my name in its sleep? Then what? The only reason Pinkie had any semblance of closure from biting off more than she could chew is because she had a mental breakdown, and the babies just so happened to be receptive to that. There was nothing about her actually solving any problems. Yet just because she cries, everything kind of like falls into place. That doesn't really make too much sense for me. I get that if you're an emotional person who uses feelings to reason with things more than, using logic and pros and cons, this might resonate with you more, and there might be that extra layer of emotional fulfillment with the conclusion, like, I get it. At face value, it's pretty cute. But examining this as a story and looking at it through the lens of, without suspending logic for the sake of emotion, it just doesn't really click with me. That's why, even though there were times I complained about how the friendship lessons of some episodes being verbally said works against the episode, specifically Sweet and Elite, where I thought that the message made no sense and had zero sense of any actual discernment. And on top of that, I talked about how the last episode we covered, Family Appreciation Day, does not do a verbal lesson at the end, and it actually works very well in favor of the episode. This episode, on the other hand, actually accomplished the opposite in a really good way. For once, I'm actually very glad that there was a verbal telling of the lesson.
Dear Princess Celestia, being a caregiver is way more responsibility than just being a playmate. Sometimes our desire for responsibility can outrun our actual ability to handle it.
Since without it, I think this whole ending would have been pretty stupid. It's just that what happens after she relays the moral seems to betray the lesson. Then again, I also get this ending is in character for Pinkie, since she is very emotional. It only makes logical sense of the way she processes the lesson to be emotional. Paradoxical, I know, but it lines up. Anyways, if emotion is what you guys are after, here's a depressing fact. Mares have a twin pregnancy rate of between 3 and 30%, depending on the breed. However, only 1 to 3% result in the live birth of both twins. Additionally, the survival rate of both twins after birth is also quite low. Therefore, one of these twins shouldn't be alive right now.